What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. So if you've been listening to the news, you know that the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus, along with our Democratic leaders, are calling for the boycott from our student athletes of universities in most of the states in the South that are participating in the redistricting on the Republican side of things. So if you're in Texas, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, those are some of the states where they are asking our athletes, particularly in football and basketball, to not play this season. And if you are thinking of going to those schools and you're currently in high school in the recruitment process, for that to be some of the schools that you do not attend. Of course, the redistricting is diminishing the black vote and also black representation within the legislature. And of course, this is an issue that we need to address collectively as a cohort in this country, because it is incumbent on us to make sure that we protect our ability to be represented and to have fair elections and fair representation in government. And right now, the Republican Party is trying their best to eradicate those efforts. They have diminished those things in the Voting Rights Act, particularly Section 2. And it has been their greatest advantage to try to retain the powers that they have established across this country, particularly in the South, with some of the efforts that are going back a number of years. Of course, I'm here in Florida, so paying attention to what happened to Representative Al Lawson's seat when Neil Dunn took his position, again, unfairly, because we had districts that were redrawn. I understand that is close to my heart, and I recognize how that has hurt us as a community in Florida to make sure that we have fair elections. With all of that, though, I must say that I believe that the approach that the NAACP has taken was a little haphazard. Asking these athletes who have worked tirelessly ever since they were younger to hone in on their craft and develop their skill sets in order to make it to the competitive D1 level, and then not to also take into account these NIL deals, name, image, and likeness policies and legislations that was so hard to put in place, because we understand that these institutions are making billions of dollars off of black athletes, but the athletes were not making any money off of their talents, and sometimes dedicating all 4 years and then of course not making it to the pros and then leaving with nothing afterwards, regardless if they graduated, especially if they didn't graduate. We knew that was harming our athletes. So now we have made it to this ability where they are able to get these NIL deals, and the NAACP is asking them to walk away from that without offering parallel financial incentives, protections, legal protections. I think that is a very haphazard thing to ask of them, and to not take into consideration the needs that they may have at home, their familial needs, personal needs, and this opportunity to hopefully lift themselves out of whatever their unique situations is and to put their family in a much better position. And just to ask them to walk away with a symbolic representation because of what's happening with redistricting in these states, I just think that is pulling the cart before the horse. Also, to find out that at this time, to my knowledge, they don't have any commitments from these athletes to participate in this, and just kind of told the athletes what they were going to do. I think that is a little tone deaf, and that's a disconnect from the party to these particular individuals who they're asking for such a ultimate sacrifice. Don't get me wrong. I do understand, and I'm well aware that it has been our athletes, it has been our young people, because these students that we're talking about typically are between the ages of 18 to 21, to be at the forefront of these efforts when it comes to civil rights, voting rights. If you talk about the Children's Crusade and James Bevel and what they did in Birmingham, Alabama, and how he went to the high schools and he asked the student athletes in the high schools and posed them with the question of, you are all going to have to inherit, and I'm paraphrasing, inherit this society in which we live in. And this is after the adults had been struggling and striving for time and time again. And he said to the youth, what are you going to do about it? And they took up the march, and by the thousands, they went out from those schools or from the churches and went down there to the Capitol, and many of them are arrested. So understanding young people needing to be at the center of this is not lost on me, but I think to ask them to do this in this manner and not offer parallel protections is just, it's not the best thing for us right now. And I don't think that you're going to get a lot of participation. But what I do think is that we need to do is go back to the drawing board, and we can find a place and an opportunity for our athletes to be involved in this in a more responsible manner, taking into account what their needs are. So if that's them wearing these wristbands or t-shirts that say fair districts or protect voting rights, or if that's them doing civic education campaigns and getting with these other civic organizations to increase voter turnout. We know it's a midterm election. In midterm elections, we have some of the poorest voter turnout across the nation, especially in the African American community. So if we can get with some of these athletes and they can encourage people to turn out to vote, not only register them to vote, but then to get your butts up out of the bed and get out of your house and go down to your polling place or mail in your ballot to participate in the election, so that we won't have less than 60% of turnout in this midterm election. That is something that I believe the athletes can still do. When they have rival games, if they can have some type of campaigns to register before you compete, I think that those are some more opportunities for our athletes to use their voice and to use their platforms, while also making sure that we offer them some set of protections. Remember, we are not too far removed from what happened with Colin Kaepernick, and Colin Kaepernick was far more successful and established than some of these athletes are. And we see what happened to his entire career with the ultimate sacrifice that he's made. And now understand that Colin Kaepernick was one person, but he also was able to motivate and inspire multiple athletes to either kneel or to protest against what was happening with police brutality. And look at them now, and look at what the NFL did. So there is a larger apparatus and a larger structure that is at work, and we must make sure that we are protecting these athletes if we're asking them to stick their necks out and to put their careers and their futures on the line while we offer them no protections. Of course, with our alumni base, with our other billionaires, with our other adults that are in the community, they can be doing more. Let's keep in mind, this success of the Republican Party didn't even start in a lot of their lifetimes. If you think about Florida, and the last time we've had a Democratic governor, you're talking about the 90s. And you look at Texas and you look at Alabama, the last time they've had Democratic governors, it's been 20 plus years in some of those aspects. And even in one alarming situation, I think it's in Texas, it has been 31 years since they had a Democratic governor. So I just think that, of course, you don't launch these strategies without first talking to the people that are going to be directly impacted, coming to the table with them and strategizing. When we go back to the situation, because I believe a large part of what inspired this, and this is just my speculation, is an incident that happened at Mizzou back in 2015, where the football team boycotted at their institution, where they were trying to get the president at the time, Tim Wolf, out of office because he allowed a lot of racism. There was the swastika that was on the bathroom wall and feces. There was a lot of slurs that was hurled at black people, and black people or students on campus did not feel protected. And the football team was inspired to do something about that. And they said that they were going to protest and they were going to sit out the games that were coming up. Understanding that that was something that was from the inside out versus where you have the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus telling athletes what they're going to do from the outside in without talking to them. So I think that we need to be aware of that. And we also need to understand that when we use the civil rights movement, that should inspire activism, but it should not be misused or an excuse for a poor strategy. So that's where I'm at with that. That's where I stand at this particular point in time, is that I don't think those athletes should participate in this haphazard, thrown together last minute strategy, all for the NAACP and Dems to want to do something. I think that there needs to be more proactiveness instead of reactiveness, because at the end of the day, we're still reacting to what the Republicans are doing. But before we put young people's lives on the line, especially for established candidates or established representatives, I think we need to have larger, more robust conversations surrounding what we're going to do. So with that, that's just a quick take for me. Real quick, House of I-10. Let's keep up the good work.